Well, what's up, again, guys? Brian here at 3TR, and welcome to another episode of the People's Questions, where I answer all the questions you guys shipped me over the past week. We got a pretty standard episode, nothing out of the ordinary, and I think it's pretty much all regulars, so we didn't really get any newbies this time around, which is okay, but maybe we'll get some more next time. Starting off with the first question coming from Virgil, son of Sparta. You want to know, do I think that there should be a match between the Assassin's Creed Syndicate main female protagonist and the Unity or Black Flag female protagonist? Well, here's the problem with that. I have not played Syndicate or Unity, and I don't really want to, so I don't really care to use characters from those eras. And in terms of Black Flag, I'm not sure who the female protagonist was. There really wasn't one. I mean, if you're talking about Anne Bonny or Mary Reed, I don't really think we got to see enough of them for me to want to use them in a matchup. I think that I think a character would have to be pretty prominent for me to use them in a matchup. So the fact that they're not means I don't really have an option in that case. Aveline was really the only one female I can think of off the top of my head that I know, having played the game, that seemed good for a matchup. So yeah, in terms of those ideas, you probably won't see them in my series, but heck, maybe someone else will do it. Next question comes from Marcus Raynan, and you want to know, which cartoon or animated character annoys me the most? Probably Meg Griffin from Family Guy. I don't know, that character just never really went anywhere for me. I mean, Stewie and Chris and Peter and Lois and Brian, they're all really solid characters, but Meg just kind of seems like a bit of a whiner, and the episodes that do focus on her just seem a little bit out of place, at least just for me. Next question comes from Santico Scarpino. You want to know, is there any Star Wars novel, comic, video game that I liked, but I didn't think was as good as people might say it is? That's weird. So a game I liked, but don't think it was as good as people thought it was. I guess Rogue Squadron. I mean, I really liked that game, but I just didn't think it was as good as people thought they were. I mean, on the N64, I mean, I think it was better on the GameCube Rogue Squadron games. Next question comes from the Immortal Super Being. You want to know, what was my reaction going back to Ishimura on Dead Space 2? Well, I'm not going to give you my true reactions and thoughts on it, but I'll say this. Hey, I was happy. It was cool. It made sense in terms of the context of the story. It was a nice throwback. Next question comes from Cassidy J. Williams. You want to know, what is my favorite boss fight in Devil May Cry series? Favorite boss fight? Probably Cerberus in Devil May Cry 3. It has a nice setting. I like how it has its own like boss theme to it. So I thought, and it had a great setup leading up to the fight. So yeah, I'll probably say that's probably my favorite. Next question comes from Cassius Bucksweet, and you want to know, which Final Fantasy villain can beat Sora, Donald, and Goofy together? Listen, if Sora can literally slap Sephiroth around like a bitch, and after all the craziness that these guys have been through, I find it highly unlikely that they would lose to anyone. I mean, Sora is OP as it is. So you throw Donald and Goofy in the mix, I mean, how do you beat them? You can't beat them. I mean, who's legitimately been able to beat them? Maybe disable or knock away one of them, but once they got back into the fight, it's game over. So honestly, nobody. I don't think any Final Fantasy final boss could beat them. Not together. Next question comes from Josh McCoy. You want to know, who do I think Raiden from Metal Gear Rising could beat Noctis in a one-on-one fight? Probably no. Because the question is what is Raiden's reaction to magic? And even if Raiden were to go into his Jack the Ripper mode, Noctis is like, he's just so hard to pin down because he can not only phase through attacks, he can teleport. I mean, all he would have to do is just stay away from Raiden, let that Jack the Ripper mode burn down, and then just go at him. And the fact that Noctis has so many different weapons that can attack him from multiple different ways, and he can use all of them at once, you know, yeah, I just don't think Raiden would really stand much of a chance. Next question comes from Jaylin Bradford. You want to know, if you've seen Dante's Magini Devil Trigger in Devil May Cry 2, do I think that form could compare to Nilo Angelino? Maybe. I've always felt that Virgil was always just, in terms of raw demonic power, was probably more powerful. But if you're taking them in terms of time and context, I would say that at that point, Dante's in his 40s, and so his Devil Trigger form would be a lot more powerful than I would say Nilo Angelo was at Devil May Cry 1. So in that context, I would say Dante's form would probably beat Nilo Angelo. But simply because so much time has passed since then. Next question comes from only one of the Hunter Bros. The second one sent in a question, but I think I don't think I could have answered it because I didn't quite understand it, and then I did research on it, and then I just couldn't answer it at all. But the one question that was sent is there a gun from any video game I want? Yes, I would like Vincent Valentine's Cerberus triple barrel gun. I would like a replica of that one day, and maybe I might get one day. Next question comes from Silver Shadow 2099. Do you want to know? Here is my question. Sorry about that. Your question is, who or do I think are the top 5 duelists in all of Star Wars Legends included? Okay, here are my top 5. Number 1 has to be Grandmaster Luke. He is the most powerful Jedi who has ever existed until Disney screwed him up. But that's not Luke Skywalker. Who knows who the hell that was in The Last Jedi. Then I would go with Mace Windu. Then I would go with Grandmaster Yoda. Then I would go with Darth Vader. Then I would go with Sidious. And I'll explain a little bit with each one. I would have to put Mace Windu in there simply because he, skill-wise and power-wise, is the perfect combatant to deal with Sith. I would even go so far as to say that he is probably the ultimate Sith killer in the Jedi Order at that time. I would then go with Master Yoda because Mace Windu has openly admitted that Yoda is a better duelist than he is, but I just think that Mace Windu is better for fighting against Sith. So you have to put at least those two together. Now when it comes to Darth Vader's entire skill set is designed to take on Sith, to take on Jedi, but there are certain Jedi that I think could actually contend with that. So it's just the fact that Darth Vader is the greatest killer. And Sidious is such a speed fencer that the only 3 people who have ever beaten Sidious would be Luke, when he was a lot more powerful, not Return of the Jedi Luke, Mace Windu, and Yoda. Those are the only 3 that have ever been able to beat Sidious in a lightsaber fight. So that's why you have to put Sidious in. So that's just my top 5, just from my personal experience and what I know from Legends continuity. Next question comes from Rain932. You want to know, from what I've seen in the new God of War game, how do I think the Norse gods compare to the Greek gods in terms of power? Well, to be honest, in terms of raw power, I haven't really seen all that much. I mean, a lot of the bosses in God of War 4 are very much grounded. They're kind of humanoid beings. When you go to the Greek gods, I mean, they're like these massive opponents that have like all these powers. And so, I don't know. I think the Greek gods might be a little bit more powerful. I mean, we haven't seen enough of them. I mean, we've heard about Odin and Thor and all these other gods, but we've never actually seen them in combat. We only really got to see 3 of them in action. One of them was killed pretty easily. The second one was was kind of went down like a bitch, and the only one that really put up a fight was the final boss. And you know, once he got let's say infected with something, he kind of was taken down pretty easily. I would honestly say that those boss fights were a lot easier than the boss fights I had in the older God of War games, but that's just me. Next question comes from Venom Rules All. And Venom, you sent in 3 questions, but the rule is you can only send in 1, so I will answer one of your questions, which was my personal favorite one of yours. And you want to know, what was the saddest video game death that I've ever seen? By far, the boss's death in Metal Gear Solid 3. Metal Gear Solid 3 is currently and will probably always remain my favorite video game of all time. And I think the boss's death was legitimately sad because he didn't want to do it, but it's kind of something she wanted. Otherwise, something more significant would have happened. And I think that it set up the foundation for the entire Metal Gear Solid franchise. So, yeah, the boss. And the last question of the episode comes from Will Williams, and you want to know, out of the 3 death battles with Final Fantasy VII characters, which did I disagree with the most? By far, I disagree with Cloud versus Link. Tifa versus whatever her name was, Yang. I don't really know anything about Yang, so I can't really call from that perspective. And Sephiroth versus Virgil, I can see in certain situations each combatant winning. Death Battle wants to do it their way. I've done it my way. So that one, it just deals with perspective. But Cloud versus Link, there was nothing that I know about Link that would ever allow me to believe that he would be able to deal with everything that Cloud could throw at him. Makes no sense. So that's probably the one match I disagree with the most. And with that, those are all the questions that you guys have sent me over the past week. I'd like to thank all of you guys for sending in your questions. If you guys have any more questions you'd like me to answer in next week's episode, be sure to type them in the comments down below. But make sure you get them into me before next Wednesday around noon before I start filming the next episode. And make sure it's only one question per person. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you next time.